Hi there, Bob Orchard here, Old Town Mariposa, and we're talking about transportation in the old days in Yosemite. And I'm here with a stagecoach driver, otherwise known as Supervisor Marshall Long. But Marshall, we've been talking a lot about what goes on in your old days as a park ranger. And you wanted to tell me a story about the 100th anniversary at the park?
Yeah, well, you know, the big course, park ranger, stage driver, interpretive ranger, wanting to interpret the history of Yosemite National Park. And of course, the best way I could do it was with the horses and the stage. While they were doing a big hoorah down in the valley, with a lot of dignitaries and such.
Important people.
Impotent people, yes.
Okay.
I planned and worked with the staff at Wawona to take the Wawona, the mud wagon from the History Center, with a 4-up and drive up the old 4-mile road from Wawona up the 4-mile road to Wawona. The south entrance, past the south entrance into the Grove, and drove up through the Grove to the California Tunnel Tree, which is behind Grizzly Giant. Now, most people think of tunnel trees in the Grove as the Wawona tree, which fell down in 1969. But the California Tunnel Tree is still there. And they kind of, the stage drivers, and of course Mr. Washburn, had that California tree cut out with that tunnel so that if they couldn't get up to the upper Grove with the stages because of snow or whatever reason, they could still use the California Tunnel Tree for their pictures for the folks. But so it's still standing, and with the staff, I can't remember I think we got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Went out and hitched up the horses, used Amos and Andy in the lead, because they knew part of that road. Max and Schwartz,
I understand those horses taught you how to...
Yeah, they did. Yeah, in the wheel I had Max and Schwartz, the big Belgian horses that we had there. The sorrel horses, I should say. Hitched them all together. It was dark. Oh, man, it was dark. Headed out around the front of the hotel and across the highway, and got out on the golf course. And I mean, we were pretty good. We had moonlight. We were pretty good until we got across the meadow and got into the ponderosas out there. I couldn't see a thing. So I let Amos and Andy, who had for many years already gone over Chowchilla Mountain with the Pioneer wagon train, I let them take us. And we finally when we got to the 4-mile road turnoff, we were just getting enough sunlight to where I could see at that point. We went through those switchbacks. Let Amos and Andy take the switchbacks just outside of the...
So this is not just a simple flat road. This is in the mountains.
This is a wagon road. This is
and there's canyons.
Yeah.
And you could fall off that road and never be seen again.
Yeah, but I trusted Amos and Andy. They'd taken care of me before. Anyway, got up to the Grove. Of course, it's with the trails and stuff, you couldn't just drive directly to the tree anymore. We had to take everything apart, push the wagon down by hand, put it there at the opening of the California Tunnel Tree, bring the horses down, hitch them back up, and we were there for 3 days.
Really?
Interpreting. And of course, the tram drivers that stop, you could hear them tell them, "Hey, you guys go down there. There's a real stagecoach." They'll say coach, stagecoach down there at the California. People were astounded to see that down there, and it was a great opportunity to interpret the history of the Grove and stage travel through the Grove.
Early day visitation.
Absolutely, it was my swamper. You know who my swamper was?
Oh.
Pete Olson.
Pete Olson?
Yep, Pete Olson was my swamper, so he helped out a bunch.
Huh.
He helped me out when I went over Chowchilla Mountain with a wagon train too. Anyway, you wanted to talk about holdups. Of course, we had the
Black Bart.
Well, that's early. We had holdups on when we had the concession over at Columbia. We always tried to have a holdup out there because people liked it. But The real holdups are a different story. What were they after? They were after that Wells Fargo strongbox.
Okay.
And of course, Wells Fargo, up until 1916, was the, what would you call them? I guess you call them the UPS, banking, whatever you wanted to ship, they shipped. They were a huge company. But the Wells Fargo strongbox, nice little wooden box about like that, it'd have payroll in it. It would have people's valuables, maybe we're writing on the stage. It'd have mail in it with money in it. And so that's what the robbers were after. And it seems like there was one guy pretty much who did most of the robbing over between Miami Lodge and Ahwahnee. There's some switchbacks up in there that made it real convenient. The horses are tired, they're walking uphill, they're on switchbacks, you can hide really effectively, and of course he'd walk out with a shotgun and hold them up and just disappear. And it's interesting, they'd find horse tracks. They wouldn't find human footprints, they'd find horse tracks out there. Well, they finally found out how this fellow was escaping without being able to track him. He had made maybe 2x4s about so long. He nailed 2 horseshoes onto each one of those. Then he made leather straps and strapped it on his foot. So as he walked, he was giving off horse tracks, not human tracks. And that's how they weren't able to track the guy. Huh. They think they know who it was, but they never arrested him. But it's interesting stories about holdups.
Huh. So, you're part of history.
I suppose I am, aren't we all?
Well,
we all have our little ripple in the big pond of the culture here.
Anyway, Marshall, I appreciate you sitting with me and sharing some of these stories.
Oh, I've got a lot more.
I know, I've heard some of them, but we'll do this some more.
Okay.
Because I think people should maybe come to understand that we arrived at a point with this place is pretty developed, but the people in history who put this all together,
people like Galen Clark and the Washburns, and just so many families involved in this.
Yes.
Developing Mariposa County, developing Wawona, developing all these things that living off of tourism even back then,
But we're going to do this some more, folks. I hope you enjoy it. Would appreciate your feedback. And if any of you folks out there have good stories, I'd like to hear them, and maybe you can come up here and talk to me about them. But because there's a lot of you folks out there that have pretty deep roots in this county, and the history that people are going to be sharing 100 years from now is going to be history that we're creating in these kind of videos with the real people who were participating in it. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and look forward to hearing from you. And as the saying goes,
adios.
Adios.